Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Thank you for tuning in. So what I'd like to talk about today is something which has been on my mind for quite a while as far as Foodie Beauty and Salah are concerned. And part of it has to do with the actual reasons as to why they may have fled Kuwait as quickly as they did. And the other part has to do with Salah's business in Kuwait. Now, with Foodie Beauty being in Syria, there are certain things which she has said and which she has done, which are giving a bit of credence to my long-held suspicions. And to put it simply, I don't think that the reason that they left Kuwait strictly had to do with Bruce or with Pause Kuwait. I think there is a bit more to this story. So what we're going to do today is take a look at certain key points from Foodie's time in Kuwait and in Syria, and we'll see if all of these things point in a certain direction. So let's get to it. Now, as we know, Syria has been subject to bombings over the last few days, and those bombings have occurred in close proximity to where Foodie and Salah are. In her vlog, Foodie took us outside of the Sword Museum, and that is exactly where one of those bombings occurred, right in front of that sword statue outside of that museum. However, Foodie is very adamant that she is not leaving Syria. She is not going anywhere. She is staying right where she is with her family. There are literal bombs and shootings occurring just feet away from her, yet she has no inclination to leave. However, she sang a very different tune when she found out that Pause Kuwait was submitting paperwork and launching an investigation. When that occurred, she got up and she left the very next day, according to her own words. And not only did she leave Kuwait, but she said Canada bees forever. So just taking a look at her words and actions in those two scenarios alone, what Foodie is saying is that a probe by Pause Kuwait is a lot more threatening to her and to them, potentially, than actual gunfire and bombs close by. Now, why would that be? Why would they fear an investigation? And we're going to go back to the use of that word in a little bit. Why would they be more worried about an investigation than actual bombs? To answer that question, we are going to go back to the beginning of the Kuwait arc because I think that Foodie Beauty may have dropped some clues along the way. Now, when Foodie first introduced Salah to the community, she had said that he had his own place and his own car and that he had a job. And things are a little bit fuzzy there because we heard that he used to work at an electronics store. I think Allah was the one who may have told us that way back when. Then there was talk of Foodie sending $9,000 and Salah becoming either an investor or a business partner with his friend in the perfume business. Now, many have surmised that that $9,000 may have just been a payment to get Salah on the paperwork to make it appear that he was a co-owner of the perfume business, just so that he could have retained his residency in Kuwait. Okay. When asked if she had ever visited Salah at his place of work, Foodie waffled. She has said that yes, she did, but she couldn't really remember it, that it was an office. Then she said that it was like a warehouse. And then again, she had memory problems and couldn't really describe it. Foodie wavered between trying not to answer the question and making things up as she went along. Now, in the last year of the Kuwait arc, Salah was not around very much at all. Foodie would stream multiple times a day for hours a day, and whether it was in the morning, during the daytime, at night, Salah was not there. When asked about this, Foodie would say one of two things. Either he was busy or he was sleeping. When members of her chat asked, well, how is it that he sleeps all day? Doesn't he have to go to work? Foodie said, well, no, he is an owner and it's different. All he does is collect the money, that he doesn't really have to show up to work during regular hours. At the same time, there were a few late evenings when Salah was not around, and when asked, Foodie would say that he was at work and that they sometimes have their meetings late at night. When Foodie began to drive herself around in the more recent months, she at one point said that Salah was out and something about him having a driver who picked him up and who would drive him about. So thus far we have Salah being either a half business owner or an investor in this perfume company. He doesn't work regular hours, if at all. He just goes around collecting money, and he may or may not have a driver. It's quite a bit of an interesting setup. And then we get to April 30th. April 30th was the day that Foodie did her 12-hour live stream. And during that stream, they got into several arguments. One was a bit of a bigger one where Salah left the apartment. I think that may have happened twice. But in any event, there was tension there. And it was during this stream that Foodie threatened to expose him. She said something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, well, I can tell them things about you too." It sounded like a bit of a loaded threat, that there was some information that she had that she would be able to expose, and that it would not be good for him if she did that. Now, in the last several months of the Kuwait arc, they were both exhibiting some especially odd behavior. They would both burst out into prolonged and uncontrollable laughter, even when nothing was being said. They would be hysterical even when no joke was being told, and many believed that it appeared that they were both under the influence of something. And then we get to the catnapping of Bruce. We are going to take a look at a very brief clip from her reaction when she found out that Pause Kuwait was going to be looking into her and the whole situation.
Investigating, exactly. Bye. Don't talk to me, Salah. Thank you. It's done. I'm leaving. I'm done.
So here we see Foodie Beauty getting nervous and reacting to the fact that Salah was yelling at her and telling her that there would be an investigation. Up until that point in her stream, Foodie was under the impression that she was being sued. She thought that Pause Kuwait was going to try and get her to pay money. However, we see Salah and Foodie using the word investigation. We also see Foodie getting very nervous and biting her nails. She was angry when she thought it was going to be a lawsuit. She got scared when she realized that there was an investigation. And it sounds like he was scared as well. At that point, Foodie had absolutely no care or consideration regarding her so-called family. She got up and hightailed it out of there. None of this, "Oh, I need to be with my family. I can't let them go through this by themselves." Nope. She got up, went home, and decided she was going to do a Canada Bees. And as we all know, Canada Bees lasted roughly a month, and then she ended up in Syria. Now, as we know, Salah did not want Foodie Beauty to go to Syria. He specifically told her not to go, and yet she went anyway. She forced herself over there, and many have wondered why. There is the theory that many believe that Foodie is afraid that if she is not around Salah, that he will find somebody else, and she is not willing to risk that. I personally believe that she wants and needs a caretaker, and that's why she's over there. However, the question has come up that if Salah did not want her there, why did he even give her his address? Why did he even tell her exactly where he is? Let's go back to the threat that Foodie made on April the 30th. She had threatened to tell people something that she knows about him. She had threatened to expose him. So is it possible that Foodie is holding some sort of information over him, and she said, "I'm coming to Syria, you're going to accept me in Syria, and if you don't, I will get online and tell everybody this thing that you don't want people to know about you." And whatever this thing is, which I have my suspicions about and we'll get to in a moment, is much more threatening to Salah than being around Foodie Beauty. that he would rather be around her than have this piece of information exposed. Now let's take it a step further. Foodie does not have access to her money in Syria. She would have to go to Lebanon, and even that would be an entire ordeal. But she is fine being there without access to her cash. And somehow he's okay with this as well. Now, unless they have some backhanded way of accessing this that does not involve going to Lebanon, that means that there's an influx of cash coming in from some other source. Let's take it a step further. In their last 2 live streams, these two have been once again laughing randomly and hysterically, and Foodie has looked a certain way. As we know, it has been implied that they have been under the influence of something. So let's connect the dots here, starting with Kuwait all the way to the present moment. Is it possible that Salah and or Foodie were involved in some type of an operation having to do with substances, which would explain his odd hours? It would explain their random fits of like uncontrollable laughter. It would also explain what Foodie is holding over his head. And they feared that an investigation would find all of this and that they would be in very big, serious trouble in Kuwait if this all got exposed. Is the business substances rather than perfumes? Is that why Foodie has no need for cash right now? Now, we know that one of the substances that is being discussed a lot is manufactured in Syria. Could there have been a link between Syria and Kuwait this entire time? And when Salah was not around, he was dealing with that. When Foodie would say that her husband supports her and that he pays for everything and all of the other things that she would say, was that money coming from such an operation? So while Bruce may have been the catalyst to them exiting Kuwait, I don't think it was the entire story, because why would Salah get up and leave the country where he was born and raised in and get up and go to Syria? Why would he have potentially lost his residency unless he was involved in something so serious? Now, of course, there's the whole argument that, yeah, he was doing inappropriate things online, and they were living together and may not have been married, and there's all of that, those arguments, which would be valid. But I think something like this would be even more serious. Foodie was very quick to explain away the Bruce situation as her attempting to do something good. And I think all of these other things she would find an explanation for. Salah's indiscretions, yeah, she can say that they were, separating or getting divorced, and maybe that would or would not hold up in Kuwait. That's besides the point. There would be no explanation if they are involved in some type of a criminal enterprise, either directly or bankrolling it or what have you. She was very definitive in saying that the Kuwait arc was over, meaning there was never any plan or discussion to return. It's only final like that because there is fear involved. They are both afraid of going back. And I think that they are both afraid because they might be involved or caught up in something like this. I have thought this for a while, but I didn't want to put it out there because, of course, at the end of the day, it is speculation. But as I said, we are connecting the dots here and things are looking a certain way. So let me know your thoughts on all of this. Thank you so much for listening, and until the next one.